Welcome to From Grind to Gold, where marketing agency owners discuss freedom, wealth, and purpose. Listen as Tony Lael, author of From Grind to Gold, talks with marketing agency owners about how to leverage their agency as an asset in their lives to build wealth, freedom, and a meaningful exit, and along the way, discover their true purpose.
We'll be talking to real marketing agency owners who are navigating life right now and making decisions on what their true purpose is and how they can find out what their agency is worth, how to get out of the hidden trap they built for themselves inside of their agency, and how to build a sellable agency and decide should they sell, continue to grow organically, or partner to scale. It's not about building a job, it's about creating an asset in your life so that you can have freedom, wealth, and figure out your true purpose.
And now, here is your host, Tony Lael.
So Blake, we just started to get into it a little bit, and I wanted to make sure we got this all recorded because the conversations I'm having with agency owners and what this is all about is talking to them about and you about how your agency can be an asset in your life for wealth, freedom, and ultimately purpose. I think the first time we talked, you were saying your agency is, let's call it in the 2 million range. And when I asked, hey, if your agency were to run perfectly in the next 3 years, what would your life be like? You tied a number to it. You're like 5 million. And what I really was after is kind of how you see your life changing and evolving in if your agency is running perfectly. And you kind of did what like 9.5 out of 10 agency owners do. It's what I used to do is you tie it right to a number like, oh, growth, and we're going from here to there. And we got to do these things. I'm have these annual goals. So you're a very driven person, obviously. So then we started to jump in a little bit into some details, and I don't necessarily want to share all those details with everybody, but or as much as you're comfortable with. But the whole purpose of the conversation is to think about your business as an asset. And most agency owners, unless they're trying to sell their business, don't ever look at the value drivers of their business if they were to sell it. So for example, you talked about recurring revenue, you talked about your COGS, you talked about where you were in terms of expenses and net, and you talked about some debt. When someone goes to buy your agency, at least in the private sector, we're not talking private equity just yet, but in the private sector, like if another agency were to buy it, another agency owner or somebody that's getting out of corporate were to go buy it, they want to make sure that, they're not buying a job. And so they want to de-risk it. So there's 14 different risk points that you look at. Things like, is the owner in the day-to-day, or do they have someone else running the day-to-day? That's just one of those examples. So if you look, because you mentioned you also have a trust, I kind of gather you've got some financial chops. So when you look at an agency as an asset and you say, what's that asset doing for you? Well, right now, you've got a really cool job. It's given you a really cool job. Would you say that's true, or how do you look at that asset in your life?
Yeah, up until right around the birth of my daughter, it was very much the case of I had a very cool job, right? I'm the CEO, I'm the chief everything officer. I was still heavily involved in the day-to-day, and I was the first person to take the paternity policy that I set within the agency, and I took a week off before I started kind of checking in to make sure everything was working okay. And in the 17 years I've been running the agency, I've only gone offline twice.
Wow.
Twice, right? Otherwise, I'm always kind of checking in at least once a day to make sure there aren't any fires that I have to put out. And there's also like this big issue, like it's control, or here's this thing that I've been building for 17 years. It's my quote unquote first baby.
Yeah.
And the last thing I truly let go of was operations, where like I've been fixing and molding this thing for so long. And then I hired my vice president of operations and handed all that over to her, which it resulted in like not, it wasn't a identity crisis. It was an identity paralysis
I
where,
love the way you say that.
yeah, like hanging out with my daughter and like building my relationship with her, I started really reevaluating what am I like, what do I want my life to kind of, what direction do I want to go in? And there was no clear, this is the path, this is the direction. So I'm actively involved in the agency. It's like, here is the things I need to do to keep momentum going in the right direction. But when I'm not in charge of molding that and keep it evolving, then I'm kind of like that John Travolta meme from Pulp Fiction, like looking around, like, what do I do?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
there was no checklist or, oh, go to this retreat or do this. It took time for it because my drive to grow the agency, that was gone. I didn't want to be a full-time stay-at-home dad, but my sense of drive, growth orientation, all of that really just went away. And then it kind of shifted more towards what kind of life do I want to live that's going to help shape my child, but also going to help other people. It's not about me anymore. And that's
Yeah.
kind of the direction I've been going the last couple of years.
So that really moved you to maybe examine yourself a little bit, would you say?
1,000%. I had a therapist tell me years ago that he thinks I'm fearless. That was the word he used. I don't really like that word because it's, you can use it for to feed ego or anything like that. I had a lot of deep questions that I just wanted to get answers to, not to slay it or to profit off of it. It was mainly so I could understand. And earlier talking about like, oh, I had like these numbers for for multiple years. Growth was always based off of, oh, get to 1 million ARR and then get to here and then get to net profit of X and then be able to make this much money. Where then I got familiar with the hedonic treadmill, like tying my happiness as a human to external things, where I started getting those things and started accomplishing the goals, and it's like, cool, I feel good, and then get a bigger house, and then for about a week I feel really good, and then I'm right back to where I was, but that treadmill's a little faster because now I have a bigger mortgage payment or I have more responsibility. And then you start thinking, okay, what do I have to do now? What do I need to, what's my next goal? And it's just a vicious cycle of, once I get to this level, I'll be happy.
Yeah. Let me read you something that, so there's a thing I'm developing. It's the 5 archetypes of an agency owner. And it's a spin off of I don't know, DISC, and there's another one. There's multiple kind of behavioral, tests or quizzes you can take, and they kind of talk about your personality or your behavior
Sure.
and how you handle things. And the one thing that those do well is And we actually use one in one of my agencies for hiring a certain role because we know a certain role has a certain disc score. Like if they get this disc score or right close to it, we know they're the right kind of personality for that. And I thought, we really need one of those for agency owners because everybody's working on building their business. Everybody, has similar challenges at similar stages. But the thing no one addresses or that I don't see them addressing yet is the psychology of what's going on with the agency owner. And the rest of it's true. Yeah, you have to have a sales system. You have to, run a profitable business. You have to do all these things. But no one really confronts, at least that I've seen, and that's what I'm hoping to do is kind of confront the psychology of what being an agency owner is. So as you're sitting here talking, and we're just really getting to know each other, but there's one archetype that I call the control builder. And I'll just read it to you. The control builder is responsible, exacting, serious, highly standards driven. They care deeply about doing things right and are often trusted because they are reliable, careful, and committed. They are usually thoughtful builders, not flashy ones. Their challenge is their standards can turn into over control, which limits their team growth, speed, and scale. There's another one that you might be, but does that describe you? Do you think that describes you?
Several years ago, I would have said 100%.
Oh, nice. You got some evolution going.
Yeah, I didn't
Okay.
hire my first full-time salaried employee until uh, early to mid 2018,
Hmm.
mainly because all the work going out, it's my name on it, right? This is part of me going to the client. Trust
Yeah.
no one. I'll do better than everybody else, which might be true to an extent, but my time is also very limited. Where I'm at now is I've relinquished most of that control and
Hmm.
give full autonomy to the people I put in certain positions and say, here's the goal, here's the mission, run with it. You're an adult. I trust you to do it. You don't need my approvals. Just let's go.
Yeah. That's great. When do you think that happened? Like, how
I
long ago have you made that shift?
I'd probably say that kind of started maybe in 2019, and then definitely during the pandemic, where I know a lot of agency owners in the space, especially SEO, friends with a lot of them, and I have my own hypothesis about what makes an agency owner that's actually going to be able to survive as an agency owner, and it's
Yeah.
more tied to. Are you familiar with ACEs? The
No.
ACEs score from Kaiser Permanente, who came out with it.
Oh, oh, I remember Kaiser Permanente, but it's not triggering the memory.
So the CDC has a whole subdomain on ACEs, which is an acronym for Adverse Childhood Experiences. And there's a lot of research behind it where if you score a 3 or 4 or higher, all instances of depression, heart disease, high blood pressure, obesity, diabetes, mental health issues, substance use disorder, everything just skyrockets. And every person that I know, I've asked them to take that, and there's 10 questions, and it's a yes or no. Every single one I've asked has scored at a bare minimum of 3. Most quote unquote normal people would average maybe a 1 or a 2. Where when there's chaos going on,
Hmm.
that's my comfort zone. And managing client relationships, expectations is one thing, but also working against a black hole, search
Yeah.
engines, large language models, where I'm comfortable in those big unknowns and there's no certainty. There's
Mhm.
nothing. It it can just be highly stressful at any given point in time. But in those stressful situations, I'm calm, cool, and collected.
So you're like me in that, because I'm a firefighter founder, or that's what I call it. And
Hmm.
the firefighter founder is wired for action, urgency, and problem solving under pressure. They often build the agency through grit, speed, resilience, and a willingness to carry more than the other people would. They are dependable in crisis and usually deeply loyal to their clients, employees, and outcomes. Their nervous system is often more comfortable in motion than in calm. They know how to save things. Um, what they usually do not know yet is how to build a business that no longer needs saving.
100%. Where when all the systems and everything are put in place and everything's just kind of going fairly well, I'll out myself. Like I've manufactured chaos in my personal life, and within the agency, I'll take a very small, minor thing and turn it into an absolute catastrophe. Or that's how I perceive it.
See, I call it everything needs to be improved. You can
Hmm.
always improve is the thing that I call it, but I didn't realize that I was actually causing the chaos in doing that. It
Yeah.
took me a long time to figure that out. Um, so I've got, I'm going to share this with you after the call, but there's core strength, core liability, identity, trap. This is the one that I wonder what happens, and I'll just try this on you. Their identity trap is this: if I am not needed, I am not valuable. And I know I feel that. Like when I've separated from the day to day from my agency, there was this gap of like, oh, I have to be doing something to earn my place, my value. And that took me a little bit of an adjustment to get through. Um, but I don't know. Do you feel that way, or do you? Because I didn't feel it until I went through the process of forcing myself out of my agency. I just had to, like, hey guys, this is my last month, and you know, I really didn't think about it until then. Like watching my calendar, get all those things removed from my calendar, and I'm like, oh, we have people in place that are doing that. And if I jump back in, by the way, I'm on Slack, so I still have the urge, but I'm like, that's their world now, and scary and freeing at the same time. You talked about no fear, you know, firefighters, no fear, run into the fire. It just so
That
happens
was
we
the career
also
path I
create
was,
fire we run into.
yeah, before I kept doing, Rickety Roo going, that was the path I was on. I was recerting as an EMT. I started the agency just I was freelancing. I had a couple clients. I was being able to pay my rent, my car payment, and live. But
Mhm.
I was going to Santa Ana Fire Academy, was recerting as an EMT. I was going to move to Phoenix, Arizona, go straight to paramedic school, become a paramedic, and then uh, become a paramedic firefighter like my grandfather.
Oh,
And
wow.
yeah, that was the plan I wanted to do, uh, because I've been in situations in real life where people are gravely injured, and I just know exactly what to do, and I'm calm, cool, and collected. But 6 months into me starting the agency, so that was October 5th of two. I found the agency February 9th of 2009. October 5th of 2009, I was riding a fixed gear road bike. So fixed gear road bike has a single gear, no brakes, and no freewheel,
Oh,
which I rode that a lot with my friends. I was not wearing a helmet. 20 miles into a ride, was trying to beat a light. I couldn't beat the light, so I went to lock up and my legs gave out. I went up and over the bars and landed right here on my head and suffered a severe traumatic brain injury. I had a fractured skull, a bleed in my brain. I was in a chemical-induced coma for 24 hours, ICU for 3 days, and then critical care for 3 more before I was discharged.
Oh my
Which,
goodness.
yeah, it totally crushed that career path. I'm a medical liability. I could still
Yeah.
work in EMS, but not on the front lines like I wanted to. So then
Huh.
it was, I just kind of decided like,
So
well,
okay, I don't have the waypoints along the way, like, oh, because I have a friend who's a captain in firehouse where we grew up, and that's been his whole life. And so if that's something that is your plan, and now that plan is no longer available to you, or that path is no longer available to you, what got you to go, oh, marketing agency? That's a obvious choice. Like, how did that work?
it after that happened, I still had those couple clients, and I was just kind of drifting through life for a little bit, and then I started kind of getting curious, which especially on the SEO side of things,
Hmm.
it really kind of helps fuel my ADHD.
Yeah,
It's a very complicated puzzle I'll never be able to solve, so it keeps me very intrigued.
right.
And I've always been pretty good at building strategy, and I know how to engage with people and talk to people. So then it was just more of a decision like, well, I'm pretty good at this. I'll just kind of, let's keep going. And I'll remain
Mhm.
open to other potential opportunities along the way. And here I am 17 years later.
Oh, wow. So Rickety Roo, how'd that name come about?
Totally random.
You
The
know, it's funny. Before you answer, you, you, the personality that comes off the screen a little bit is more buttoned up, and then Rickety Roo is like this craziness. So maybe that's the way that you expressed yourself. Tell me that story.
the when I got my start in the industry, that was January 2007, and I got a job at a telemarketing company that sold local SEO. I got a job in the production department because I can type 90 plus words per minute. Just a data entry job.
Yeah.
Within 3 months, I picked it up pretty quick. I became a production manager, and then I took over and ran their pay-per-click division. And that company started doing mass layoffs. I was protected because I was running a department, and that department was very profitable. I knew how much money I was making in that department, and I was on a $36,000 per year salary with no benefits, and I was the only person helping sell, build campaigns, manage campaigns, and I asked for help. They said, sorry, we can't. And I kind of realized, well, if I did this on my own, I could probably work less and probably make more money. But when they were doing those mass layoffs, they laid off a whole bunch of my friends. We were all hanging out that night at my friend Josh's condo, and I just threw it out there. We're the ones who know what to do. Why don't we just start our own company? They all loved the idea. We were trying to come up with a name, and that name, Rickety Roo, popped in my head. I threw it out there. They liked it. I bought the domain name. There's no
Nice.
background like outside of that. And 6 months later, when I went out on my own, I needed a company name. People liked the name, so I've been running with it ever since.
It sticks with you, that's for sure. Rickety
Thanks.
Roo is just, it reminds me of like a Disney character, kind of, like Scooby Doo. I know that rhymes, but that's not
Yeah,
what I mean. But like Scooby Doo, you're never gonna forget that name.
yeah,
Um,
and which it almost kind of seems a little counterintuitive to what we do, especially when the first big portion of the business name is rickety, which is the definition is built on a shaky foundation. And then here we are, like, hey, we do really good SEO, and we're going to make your website is the foundation of your business. We're going to make that rock solid, but our name is rickety, so
yeah.
it's counterintuitive.
Do you guys, I think I know the answer to this, but the audience should know. Do you guys focus on a given vertical, or your multiple verticals? You just focus on SEO, right?
We have a pretty big footprint in home services. That's just always been kind of something that we've had really good success in, and we like working with small to medium-sized businesses. We also have done a fair amount of enterprise work. We have a couple of e-com clients. We also work in legal and healthcare. For a period of time, we were niching specific to addiction treatment centers, but I know a lot about that industry, and especially after Obamacare happened, the amount of shady practices that started happening, I ended up having to vet treatment centers way more than they would ever vet us.
Yeah.
And so it kind of shied away from that. We're still working it here and there, but it hasn't been a primary focus.
You know, it's funny. I got to the point where, and this is, there's four freedom. You read the book, 10x is easier than 2x. And what they talk about there are the four freedoms: freedom, time, money, relationships. Now, what that means is you get to work with who you want to work with when you want to work with them. That freedom to do that. And along the way, somewhere, and I don't know how this happened, but you kind of get to the point, or at least I did, and some of my partners did, was like, I don't want to work with that type of business.
Mm-hmm.
We have to like the people we do business with, right? Isn't that part of the whole deal? And we kind of landed on, or at least that agency landed on, home service contractors of multiple types, like movers, roofers, HVAC, plumbers, electrician, that kind of thing, right?
Mm-hmm.
And what we kind of, a couple of things kicked in for us when we were looking at that, and the reason why we narrowed in on that was, man, these are the guys that keep our homes healthy, happy, safe, clean, up to date, valuable, all those things. The home is where the heart is, kind of the biggest, for most people, the most valuable thing they have in their life is their house. And they invest a lot in it, and fewer and fewer people are DIY people, although maybe it's making a comeback because YouTube's really strong on how-tos. But you hire a professional, and you really appreciate what a professional can do to, update your basement, or, put a roof on your house, and they just go unappreciated. And they're also like agency owners in that they're kind of out in the world living life without a net. There's no guarantee for any of our businesses, right? We have to band together to make it all work, which is why I think my purpose really is, I'd like to see 1,000 founders be fulfilled in their life. Now, what does that mean? It means living those four freedoms. Well, how do you get those four freedoms? And that's where we talk about, like, how do you band together to refer a business? What's your back office system running like? Is there a way to make it, more profitable? There's all kinds of things that go into building those freedoms, but I wanted to start to have conversations with agency owners, and I can't be the only one going through this. There's a bunch of different groups out there. We're a part of Seven Figure Agency, but there's, I don't know, dozens of groups, agency groups, which are nice to be a part of. Have you ever been a part of one of those?
Yeah, the one I'm currently a part of, it's called Assassins Only. It's put on by he used to be my coach, but now he's like one of my best friends, Nick Eubanks. He had an agency called From the Future, scaled it up, hired a CEO. He became, president of the board, or the chairman of the board. Kind of stepped away, was working on other things, and then, that business got acquired. So he had kind of built something that was appealing to me. And when I first came across his content, I thought he was full of junk. I thought he was just another tech bro. And I
Yeah.
started looking at some of the things he had done. I go, oh, this guy actually really knows what he's talking about. He's okay. I'll I should work with him. And then he was my coach for maybe I think 3 or 4 years straight.
Hmm.
And where I have no agency background prior to this. I worked for a telemarketing company.
Right.
So it was like, okay, I have no framework to work off of. Who's my first hire? What should I do?
Hmm.
And then I got a lot of really great insights from him that really kind of helped me avoid a lot of those pitfalls that happen along the way. And, but unfortunately, some of the great lessons agency owners learn are very painful ones, where the greater that pain is, then I know that mistake will never happen again.
Yeah.
Where as you're kind of growing and scaling, one of the first things that's going to be put to the test is how secure are your ops. If there are any holes, they will start flooding in very, very quickly, and then you learn your lessons, and they're painful ones, but that's where growth occurs.
Another painful one. I'll add to that. Yeah, because you get to the point where in your agency, you figure out how to make sales. Now you have to onboard clients, and then you have to serve clients, and you have to be consistent, and you have to deliver the expectation, what expectation the client was sold during the sales process, and that kind of has to marry up. And for sure, if you don't have your delivery systems down, that consistency can, like, oh, I didn't know I was supposed to do this at this time. And now, because I didn't do it at this time, it lapsed for a month, and then the client wrote us another check, but isn't getting the result. Like, all of that snowballs. So I completely understand what you're saying. Another interesting one is defining culture so that the wrong people don't get in and the right
Mhm.
people do, and having the process to make sure that happens. Because when the wrong person slips through the cracks, it invariably, they go against, I used to think culture was, fluffy stuff a long time ago. And now I understand why that saying, culture eats strategy for lunch was whoever, spoke those words couldn't be truer. And until you go through that and you make a mistake and you go, wow, that person just lost us a client. That's $100,000 mistake or more. And until you think about it that way, yeah, it was painful because we lost clients. We lost a client. We lost reputation. We lost, like, there's all kinds of things. Until you get that squared away, you really don't have anything you can build on top of. And then your sales constantly has to replace, if you're losing clients and churning, your sales constantly has to replace that if you're
Yeah,
going to maintain or grow.
this also kind of comes into play, especially if the agency owner is the one who's making all of those initial critical hires, where a lot of bias goes into it, whether you're trying to be aware of it or not. And there's been a couple situations where, I hired somebody, but because of my unconscious bias, I let stuff go that if I was the one who hired them, it would have brought up issues a lot sooner. Where typically, if you're the only person who's vetting and doing hiring as the agency owner, you're going to hire people that represent certain people in your life, whether that's good or bad.
Yeah.
It's uncanny, and it happens. I know two specific situations where that happened. I won't go any more in detail on that, but it also really kind of helps solidify, okay, I can't let my biases come into the mix here. So then our hiring process, I'm the last person a potential hire speaks to. They go through HR, then they talk to one of our other people on the team, plus who their direct boss would be. Then they talk to my vice president of operations, and then they talk to me,
Yeah. Oh,
trying
nice.
to remove any of that bias, so that way we're only bringing people on that match the culture that we have.
Yeah, and of course the other two people also understand the culture and live
Yes,
it and model it. Um, that's really really smart. Yeah, it took us a few iterations to get that right too. Um, so let me ask you again. I'll just so now when you start thinking about 3 years out, if everything's running perfectly, what's your what do you want your life to look like?
I don't have a clear answer yet. Up until I haven't done it for this year, I should probably do it. I normally write out like what my ideal year looks like, personally,
Hmm.
professionally, spiritually, relationally, all of that,
Yeah,
and then kind of say, okay, if this happens, this is going to be a great year.
right.
Which, building a pro forma for the agency, that's easy. Been doing that for a long time, but I've never done up until 3 years ago. I'd never done that in my personal life. And
Isn't that funny?
why? Yeah, like
And that one's the more the more meaningful.
yeah. Which, a lot of this comes back to dealing with a lot of the subconscious stuff that's kind of dictating how you operate. Where
Yeah.
I know if I'm taking care of myself physically, mentally, spiritually, relationally, I show up as the best version of myself to the agency. Historically, up until I became aware of this and really started making shifts to it, if anything was needed within the agency, I would sacrifice anything in my personal life because that's what the agency needed,
Mm,
which is a disservice to the agency because I'm not showing up as the best version of myself.
yeah.
So 5 years from now, I likely think I won't be. So right now, I'm still the only person who does sales. And
Hmm.
when clients or potential clients ask about what should I expect, I always use the same line. Expectations are nothing more than premeditated resentments. I have no idea what's going to happen when we do this, execute this work. Here's typical patterns that we look for.
Hmm.
Here's case studies for clients in your same industry, same market size, same
Hmm.
position. Your results will be different. They might be better, they might be a little bit off. I
Yeah.
have we just here's our track record. But let's say the client has a 20% growth goal within 9 months. And if we get to 17 at the end of 9 months, well, the expectation was 20. We did 17, but the client did 15 million last year. You go, are they really? Are they're going to be upset because they missed out on 3%? So I always like to say like, hey, I want to under promise and over deliver.
Yeah. It's, so how do you see, we'll get into a little industry shop talk. How do you see AI? Because when I used to look at all the data and getting peeks at data, it was like the SEO, organic traffic was on just everybody. Now, part of it could be the process that that agency is following. I know part of it is the zero click stuff that's going on because of AI. That's part of it. What's interesting is that team started getting more people to show up for AI. It was strange. Anyway, I want your take on how AI is impacting the SEO world because, um, you know, all those language models still rely heavily on what's out there on the internet and noticeable on the internet, right?
Mhm.
So it's not like it's disappeared. It's not like some people like, oh, demand is going down. I'm like, no, no, no. Demand is the same as it's always been. It's just showing up a little bit different. So how do you look at that? How do you talk to your team about that?
Uh, I think the biggest thing is making sure that the attribution that you're tracking isn't contingent on organic traffic or rankings, where ultimately a client is hiring us, from talking about home services, they want more business. They don't care what their organic traffic looks like. If their if their pipeline's full for
Hmm.
service installation, they're very happy, especially if it's matching their growth goals. So usually if I come across a website and I see decline organic traffic, I want to know where that organic traffic loss is coming from. If 60% of that organic traffic loss is coming from blog posts, well, if it's a home services business, I can probably guarantee that less than 1% of that organic traffic ever turned into an actual lead,
Yeah.
right? Context is everything. How is that client showing up for the transactional keywords that really matter? That's what's really most important. And with, but then at the same time, it's like, well, we've had access to large language models for multiple years at this point. You might see patterns of massive organic traffic rise, and then especially more recently, heavy traffic losses, which is usually an indicator for me to look at and say, well, the machine caught up, search engines caught up to all this AI generated content that you add to rank for transactional keywords, and now whether it's a core update or being affected by Google's helpful content update, which is an update, it's an ongoing system. Okay, you gambled, you won for a little bit, and now you're in a steady decline. So all of that needs to be completely redone. AI can help with some of it, but you can't just re-churn out 150 local service pages to then re-rank for what you lost with AI.
Right.
But we are
Right.
seeing clients are getting more and more demand calls, especially home services, from ChatGPT, Perplexity, Grok, etc. Uh, we do a fair amount of testing, and one that I'll share that it's not breaking news or anything, but you see people talk about like large language models. They like FAQs, but then they also like prices. And
Yeah.
for a plumber that we work with, we added ranges of prices for drain cleaning services, and direct bookings from ChatGPT in the previous couple of months have done nothing but go up.
Right.
And whenever we're trying to maximize what we're getting from search engines, but also start getting things from large language models, we're trying to get the best of both worlds without sacrificing what they're still getting the majority of, which is on the organic side.
Yeah.
Now, I know there are certain ways to get a lot more from ChatGPT, but they will absolutely destroy your SEO presence.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Interesting. We, we could spend hours talking about this. I could go down the rabbit hole with you,
Hmm.
for sure. And maybe that's a conversation for another time. But I definitely want to introduce you to one of my partners over at Fanet, Chris Fink. Um, he's our integrator over there. Of course, we run EOS. I know you guys don't necessarily, but you know about it.
Hmm.
Um, I think I should introduce you guys. No, anyway, I don't know why. I, I'll do that off air or whatever. But I just really have enjoyed our conversation today about, and I love the fact that you're open about talking about the psychology of agency owners, and then you've done some work on yourself because that's what it takes, the hard work to get to the next places. Um,
Yeah, unfortunately, with that stuff, there aren't any shortcuts.
The only way is through, man. It just sucks.
Yeah, it's. I don't know if you ever smoked like barbecue. It's
Yeah,
kind of like smoking a brisket. It's gonna take 23 to 24 hours to make a really good brisket. And
yeah,
if you try to speed up that process, the end result is not gonna be good.
yeah. Well, and also, who do you have in your life around you? This is why. So I don't know. I'll get your take on this. I think there are some people that can handle and run things by themselves and like that. And then there are others that need teams. Now, the fact of the matter is, even if you're the lone owner of an agency, you have a team, you've built a team, you've done that. We kind of what we notice is that some employees don't ever act as an owner, and it's because they're not one. They're great and they do a good job, and they're, there's at that place, but there's certain things to navigate that you just need someone at a level of a partner. At least that's the way we went. And it's this, internally we just like, hey, making real money, it's a team sport. So you gotta, one way or another, you gotta have a team. I don't know if you lean more towards one or the other, because I've ran into people that don't play well with others on the ownership front, right? They're like that. I'm gonna take my ball and go home if things don't work out. And to me, it's like, really, like, there's plenty of it to go around for everybody, right? So we should, anyway, just a philosophy and approach. I don't know if you've ever thought about that, having partners, not having partners, how you felt about that. Some people have been burnt too. That's the other thing. Oh,
Hmm.
I used to have a partner in another business, and just because it's kind of like having a wife or a husband, however you look at it, partners are that way. We've
Yeah,
really leaned heavily into that model.
yeah.
Do you have
I
any?
up until maybe 3 or 4 years ago, I had never even considered potentially at some point in the long distant future selling the agency. Never thought about it, never crossed my mind. And when I was going through that identity paralysis, I started kind of thinking about that a little bit. I was like, okay, well, what would that look like? And where I've even thought about, well, certain people on my team, maybe they're not actual owners, but I could offer them some version of sweat equity. And then I learned about, and I heard this from a law firm that implements things like this for businesses,
Hmm.
with Oregon, Washington, California, and Colorado being four of those states, and a lot of other states will eventually, when it comes to like equal pay acts,
Hmm.
uh, even like on the phantom equity side of things, can open up tons of issues. And I've got employees
Yeah.
in every single one of those states, and like, okay, well, let me put this on the back burner for now.
Yeah.
Um, I've if I were to bring in a partner within the agency to kind of help get it to the next stage of evolution, I would be looking for someone who's going to bring the things that either I'm not the best person suited for it, or I just don't want to do it.
Yeah.
Kind of, same with, finding a life partner. It's okay. I need to find the direct opposite of how I operate.
Yeah.
Same thing applies on operations. I read that book, The Second in Command.
Oh, I haven't read that one yet.
It's really good. It's from I forget his name, the COO of, he was the COO of, it's one of the super popular junk hauling franchises.
Hmm.
I think it's Got Junk. He took them from, I think, 10 million to like 300 million
Yeah.
in a short period of time. And that book really helped me find the perfect number two for my agency. And it's all based on you need to find your direct opposite, someone who's going to, that's really good at the things that you're just not good at. And I know what I'm not good at, and she's amazing at.
Yeah.
And conversely, she's not great at things I'm really good at. So it works.
That's that book, reminds me of that book, Rocket Fuel. It's the same, excuse me, same people that wrote Traction.
Gino
And the,
Wickman.
they talk about visionary and integrator. It's exactly how you just described it. They're typically opposites, but they have to have a really, really strong relationship. Well, hey, we're running out of time here. Um, I really appreciate your time talking, and just want to continue to get to know you and your agency, and any way I can help. I'm starting to connect with a lot of agencies that need expertise in certain areas, and what I am finding now is I'm able to make introductions where I can see puzzle pieces that would fit really nicely together, and that seems to be, and I love doing it. Um, I love doing it. I think I'm a pretty good study in people, and just kind of superpowers. Takes a while
Mhm.
to get to know folks, but let's just keep going if you're okay with that, and maybe we'll have another conversation
Sure.
down the road, and who knows where this stuff ends up.
Yeah. One of the, I'm always looking for new relationships, new opportunities. However it shakes out, it's how it shakes out.
Yeah.
We hope you were inspired by today's episode of From Grind to Gold, and that one day you find yourself living your true purpose.